Introduction. We live in a regulated world. Some industries are far more regulated than others. And for good reason, I think. I personally have no desire to get botulism from a can of food, or have my car lose steering while I'm driving down the highway. Nor do I want someone to be able to take my money when I deposit it at the bank. And I'd certainly like my grandma's prescription medications to be consistent and free of toxins. Ideally, companies would do these things on their own because it's good business to not steal from, poison, or otherwise endanger your customers. But harsh experience has shown that's not how the world works. So, we have regulations that all businesses must comply with, like tax regulations and employment laws. And then there are the industry-specific requirements, where generally the more risk to the eventual customer, the more regulation. And while it can initially seem straightforward to comply with these regulations, my almost 20 years of experience with regulation in the financial services industry has shown me that it is not. For many businesses, especially smaller businesses operating in a highly regulated environment, the scope and pace of regulation can be overwhelming. For larger businesses, it's usually more an issue of how best to build a compliance program that is effective yet still cost-conscious. So what I've tried to do in this book is lay out a framework for how to approach regulatory compliance and the different ways in which that compliance can be achieved. I'm an opinionated person, so I'll also touch on a few issues that aren't specifically regulatory compliance issues. For example, right up front, we'll discuss compliance as a business decision and what that means to everyone within the organization. I'll also touch on some concepts that originated in auditing and have found their way into compliance, such as tone at the top, and how industry best practices and regulatory guidance can skew the actual written requirements that apply to your company. All of this is part and parcel of regulatory compliance, in my opinion. Although there is also the basic framework of how to approach compliance that we'll cover as well. At this point, you're probably wondering who I am and why you should listen to me. What gives me the experience to write this book? My background is in financial services regulation. I started my career at what was then NASD, now FINRA, which is a government-authorized entity in the United States that is responsible for the primary oversight of broker-dealers based in or doing business in the United States. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, then provides oversight of them, but the majority of on-site examinations of broker-dealers conducted in the U.S. are conducted by FINRA examiners. I was initially a field examiner, conducting on-site exams of broker-dealers for compliance with FINRA as well as SEC requirements. I then worked in the department at FINRA that was responsible for writing the examination procedures for all of those field examiners. During that time, I wrote or rewrote FINRA's examination procedures for anti-money laundering, AML, regulation, mutual fund compliance, and a number of other regulatory requirements, although I'm certain they've changed since then. I was also one of their designated national experts on anti-money laundering regulation. When I left FINRA, I went to work for a boutique consulting firm where I worked with a large range of financial services entities, from broker-dealers to banks to money services businesses to investment advisors to credit rating agencies and more. My focus was on anti-money laundering compliance, credit rating agency regulations, and corporate governance and risk compliance. My clients at the consulting firm were some of the largest financial institutions in the world, and we often evaluated their compliance programs on an entity-wide basis.